No, an eighth grader beat me on the field hockey field, and I'm determined that is not going to happen again. They beat
We're good? Okay. I'd like to call this meeting to order. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We're going to start off with the reading of the school district vision statement. We are an organization committed to learning and growing together by providing a safe, caring, inspiring environment where students engage in a wide variety of opportunities that honor their individual interests, needs, and talents in the classroom and beyond. Next item 1D, we'll move on to our Orange Crush celebrations.
Yeah, so the first one I like to do is congratulate all of our graduating seniors that were accepted into the SUNY Broom on October 28th. The class of 2025 completed all their applications and were immediately accepted through the Broom Express program. So thanks to our counselors, Mrs. Gilbertson and Mr. Preston, for working with both our seniors and Broom to make this opportunity happen. The second one is thank you to everyone who participated in or came out to observe the Townsend Halloween Parade. And although it was not on the intended date, we were really excited for everyone who came out and participated by watching and observing on the sidelines. And we had a spectacular success. And shout out to Rick Robinson, who is actually here this evening, and PJ Harmer for great photos and the digital recording that we posted on our website and Facebook page. And the third thing is, I would like to say thank you to our principals. October was Principals Month, and I neglected to make sure that I had noted that, so I wanted to make sure that I gave a shout out to Ms. Hector, Mr. Hoover, and Mr. Loomis, as well as Mr. Ashlaw, who is our assistant principal. Being that month, it was a time for us to appreciate all their efforts they put into everything, managing and scheduling, activities, students, and other staff members, and fostering a climate and a sense of belonging for both students and staff, and facilitating continued learning in their buildings. So I'm very grateful for all of them. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Glavin. Moving on to 1E is the Board of Education recognition. And at this time, we'll recognize Michelle Bowker.
Yes, so Michelle, you were absent the last time, so I just want to present you with a school board recognition certificate as you started this year, and you have your gifts, so thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to item 2A is the approval of the minutes from the October 21st, 2025 regular meeting.
I'll make the motion to accept them.
Second.
Motion by Tammy, second by Jake. Any further discussion? All those in favor indicate aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Item carries. 3A, public comment. The Board of Education welcomes and encourages input from the public at board meetings. Please note that neither the board nor administration may engage in a dialogue or respond to questions concerning personnel or student matters. This is not an attempt to restrict public comment, but is done to protect the privacy of the individuals involved as required by law. As a matter of courtesy to others in attendance, comments of individuals groups should be limited to less than 3 minutes. Do we have any public comment? None tonight. And we'll move on to 4A, which is the DCMO BOCES capital project presentation presented by Mike Rulo.
Thanks. Thanks for having me here tonight, for giving up some time on the board meeting. Yeah, awesome. And so I will try to be respectful of your time tonight, but please be sure to ask questions if you have them as I provide the presentation. You do have a couple of copies of the presentation. Thank you, Corey, for always being prepared and for helping. I do appreciate it. Tonight, the topics for the agenda are as follows, right? We'll kind of run through the project overview, talk about the core 4 principles that really emerged as checkpoints for us as we decided on scope items for this project. Give a high-level overview of scope. Try not to get too far into the details at this point in the project. Talk about the project financing, which is always of interest to people, right? Because the project, this looks great, Mike. How are we going to pay for it? Right. So we'll talk about that. Give you some information on voting, some calendar items leading up to the referendum in February, and then post-referendum, kind of those steps that we need to take, and then would certainly entertain questions again throughout the conversation. And always interested in feedback if you have any. So having said that, I want to start with a thank you, and also just make you aware of the project planning team that we engage with over the course of about a year. We met almost monthly, not every month, but almost monthly, to develop this project. And hopefully, when you look at this team, it builds some confidence in the construction of the project as well. When you see we had our architects at the table all the time, we use March Associates, who have worked with our BOCES for quite a while and work with several other BOCES as well. So they're kind of familiar with what makes BOCES tick and what does that look like. Our construction management firm is CNS Companies, well known across our region and in the field. And in particular, Mike DePerna with CNS was actually part of the team that did the 2005 project at DCMO BOCES. That was the last time there was a major capital project done at our BOCES. And so he has a lot of familiarity with the organization and what the needs are. And so we're really excited to have Mike on the project, as well as Tim and some of their other team members. I think everybody uses fiscal advisors. Ben Maslona is brand name. His colleague Elise, experts in school finance and in particular with capital work. So again, as far as having confidence in the financial pieces, we're tight there because we have Ben in the background and actually, frankly, in the foreground. You see we had excellent participation from our component superintendents. And that was really just kind of like a check belt for us. We needed to make sure that the discussion, the scope items, how we were developing this project really resonated with the components, is going to meet the needs of the components, and that it was kind of a pass go, do not pass go type of mentality with that group. And you happen to know at least one of those guys real well, right? And so you can see Dr. McDonald, when he was here, was still part of our team, and now of course having him on the Hancock board still allows him to have some voice and some input as to the development of the project. So really helpful to have those folks part of the team, as well as the DCMO members that you would expect, right? Our Board of Education members that fulfill the role of being on our Building and Grounds Committee. Then we had the board president participate as well, because she's going to be signing all the documents, and so felt as though she really needed to be positioned in a way that she had firsthand knowledge. And then of course our administration, our staff. A little bit of an overview, especially for the newer board members that are on the table, of like, what are BOCES, what do they do, what do we do? And so BOCES are legislatively authorized. There are 37 BOCES across New York State. At our BOCES, we have 2 instructional campuses. You're probably very familiar with the Harold campus on 206. It's not too far from here, but we have the Allen Pohl campus in Norwich. And then we have a support services center that is up the hill, separate from the Pohl campus, but basically on the same grounds. We are one of those 37. You can see we have 16 components in our BOCES in this region. And I just kind of want to highlight this very last sentence here. We really see ourselves as an extension of our component districts. There are some things that we do that are unique to BOCES, right? Our CTE programming, some of our special education programming, our alternative education programming. But districts really shouldn't try to replicate those things for reasons of economy of scale and expertise. Similarly, there are things that our components do that we wouldn't try to replicate either, right? And so we really see ourselves as having that great partnership and relationship that ensures we have really everything that our students could need within our region as far as the educational experiences that they need. Again, mission and vision, mostly here just to say we use these as drivers in the construction of our projects. We really pushed ourselves to make sure that we're preparing for the future so that we can be innovative, so that we can be future-minded, and we can ensure that our students have every opportunity that they need to be prepared for whatever it is that they want to do post-high school. Our BOCES currently has 17 CTE programs, always looking to develop more things that are of interest to students and that prep them for post-high school life. We have robust special education programming and services. We have some alternative education programming. I can tell you feedback actually since before I started in this role, because I had a relationship with a lot of the superintendents in the DCMO region. They were saying, Mike, when you get in the seat, we need more special education programming. We need more all-ed programming. I think that's still true today. And this project, as you'll hear, really begins to address a couple of those things. We do have preschool and daycare at both of our campuses, always full, always a wait list, right? Daycare across this region and pretty much everywhere is a premium. And so we know that that's an important piece of our BOCES. We do offer professional development for our educators, which includes teachers and administrators. And then, of course, our operation and management supports for school districts that, again, are operational efficiencies, economies of scale, things of that nature. I think this is fascinating as we put this slide deck together, right? So here's some high-level stats that absolutely, in my mind, indicate why it's so important that we ensure our facilities are top-notch. So we have about, and it's actually a little bit higher this year, we have about 10% of the region's K-12 students on one of our BOCES campuses every day. That's remarkable. Most of the districts in our BOCES don't represent 10% of the student population, right? So we have a significant population of the region's students on our campuses on a daily basis. You can see that about 50% of the region's juniors and seniors attend one of our career or technical education programs. That's pretty significant. It's over 900 students a day that attend our campuses for CTE programming. Again, fascinating. So in the DCMO catchment, the population over the last probably 15 years-ish is almost half of what it used to be, right? Depending on what you look at, right? It's almost half. However, we have more students enrolled in our special education programming today than we did 20 years ago when the last project happened. Proportionally, that really shouldn't be the case, right? But it is. And again, there are wait lists for our special education programming because the needs of students are significant in today's educational landscape. And so that really speaks to that last bullet point, right? Education is always changing. That's the one thing we can be sure is going to happen. It's going to keep changing. And we know that we're on the precipice of a really significant change as we look at the Portrait of a Graduate and the New York Inspires initiative. And so all that to say, we really need to make sure that our facilities are up to date and that we're prepared for not only the students of today, but the students of tomorrow. Little history of capital project at DCMO. I kind of started saying we don't do this very often. Quite frankly, much less frequent at BOCES than in component districts with capital work. And you guys know you've had lots of capital work going on here. And it's pretty typical in the school districts, right? You have some retiring debt service, and you start a new project to keep that debt service rolling, make sure that your aid levels stay where they need to stay. And so we're actually doing that, which I'm getting a little ahead of myself because I'll talk about the financial pieces later in the slide deck. But working backwards here, you can see that last project was 20 years ago. It was authorized in 2005 and completed in that 2008-2009 school year. These areas in blue were really the significant pieces of the project. That project was about $48 million. It was a lot of instructional space. That's an important idea because that project was at about 98% aidable. Remarkable to get a project at 98%. You're always trying to get that number as high as you can because for most of the districts in our region, we have really favorable building aid, right? And so that was about 98% aidable. Our project, and I'll talk about this again, the proposed project is just over 90%. You'll see what the implications are for that on a financial side in just a few minutes. Again, working backwards, this BOCES was actually 2 BOCES in the late 60s. And that happened in several areas of the state where a couple of BOCES merged into the DCMO that we know today. And then there was a pretty significant project 50 years ago, right, to really get the buildings kind of up to speed. Some of the areas haven't been touched. They weren't touched in that 2005 project. So they're kind of showing their age a little bit. If you're wondering why we have to have a referendum, here's the reason, right? So anytime that we're going to purchase property, that we're going to add to existing facilities, and frankly, to go to the voters because of the financing need of this project, we have to have a referendum, just like you do in school districts, right? So we have to go to the voters. This project, as I said, is looking to expand our facilities in a minimal way. Nothing similar. We're looking to expand footprints significantly, but we're also looking to purchase some additional property. As we developed our project scope, we really took a very much a holistic view of what are the needs in our BOCES. And we need to make sure, because we don't do this very often, that we're knocking off all of those have-to items. So starting with our building condition survey, very similar to the BCS that you have in a school district, right? Every 5 years it gets updated, architects come through and make that laundry list of items that you really need to be paying attention to, right? So that's really where we started, and we saw those infrastructure items as have-to items. If we don't do them now, when are we going to do them, right? And we have a lot of infrastructure needs, things that haven't been touched in a long, long time, right? I'll talk about that a little bit more in a subsequent slide. We did staff interviews. Our architects sat in our buildings for days and let staff come and share whatever they wanted to share. They know their spaces better than we do, right? And what we found out was things like the sink in my shop doesn't drain. The plumbing is like really old. We need it to work, right? So I wouldn't know that, but they did. And so that got on the list of things that we knew we needed to take into consideration. Building walkthroughs, administrative input, and then using that capital project planning team that I started with, all contributed to developing a fairly significant project. So again, high level here, we're looking at those physical needs, those infrastructure needs, things like roofs, driveways, HVAC, right, plumbing, those things that have to be done. And if you know our campuses, the buildings are massive. Every single square inch of roofing has to be redone in this project. That's a lot of roof. And there's a hefty price tag with closed roofs, right? And so gonna make sure that those building envelopes are tight, because it wouldn't make a lot of sense to make the inside really beautiful if then a couple of years later we start having leaks and, and other things malfunctioning. But we're also going to make sure that we address classroom spaces to support the changing needs for our instructional program. You've got to do a little bit of both. And I made the mistake at one of our planning team meetings of saying flippantly, like, nobody cares about plumbing, right? Nobody gets excited about pipes in the wall. And our director of facilities was like, I do, right? So I'm like, all right, Tom, I got you. Right, I'll be more careful about that. So point well taken. We are looking at an addition at the Harold campus, and it would be a new main entrance for the CTE wing of the building. I'll show you what that could look like. I think it's the next slide, but this is really, really important when we talk about safety and security of the building. And then we're talking also about the purchase of the Masonville School from the Sydney Central School District. That will be a separate question on the ballot. So the voters will be able to consider whether they want to support that or not. But we also believe that's a really important piece of the puzzle, as we look to be able to expand programming for districts and for students. These are the 4 core guiding principles that emerged as we developed scope. We kind of use these, as I said before, as kind of pass go, do not pass go. Now, every scope item doesn't hit all of these, every one of these things, but most of them hit a couple at least, right? And so we said, if this can be in the project, and by the way, as you would imagine, all of the things that we have to do and would like to do was significantly more expensive than what we knew we could afford. So we had to scale the scope, right? And we had to scale it down, and we kind of use these as those balance points. So is it promoting the safety and security of the campus? Is it creating flexible space for us so that we're just not locked into it? This instructional space can only and forever be used for this purpose because it is so uniquely crafted that that's all we could ever do with it, right? We know that we need flexibility so that we can react to changing needs of not only students, but staff, the educational system itself. We know that we always need to be able to expand opportunity, right? And I'd say expand and contract opportunity as all of those variables in the system change, right? We need to be really nimble in our organization to be able to adjust and then being responsible stewards of both the physical resources that we have and then of course the financial resources that are available to us as well. And so I'll go through some slides to show how we addressed those things just as some examples. From a safety and security perspective, this is a rendering of what that new main entrance could look like. It's not a final draft. We just charged the architects with saying, we know we need to do this. Can we? Like, can we reasonably add a secure main entrance onto the CTE wing? And is it affordable? And they said, yeah, we can do that. And so here's a rendering. Now, this is the existing facade. So if students enter the CTE wing, it's down here in this part of the building. And what's interesting right now is to get from one end to the other, they literally have to walk through every single shop, which is not safe, it's not secure, right? And we think we can do better than that, and we will, assuming that this project gets approved. So what this will allow us to do is, first of all, ADA accessibility from the moment a student comes onto the campus and needs to access that wing. That's important. And then they'll be able to go directly to their shop space, to their classroom space, via a doorway from this hallway. I think you'll agree this is a much more inviting and welcoming facade than that. And in fact, you really can't even enter this building from here. So you end up going in like these goofy doors into stairwells, and you kind of work your way up into the wing, and then have to go through all the shop spaces. There's literally yellow lines painted on the floor that you're supposed to walk within to get to another fire door, through another fire door, and make your way down through the building. So it's worked, but it's not particularly safe and secure. And one of the things I like to share with folks, and I was a middle school math teacher when I started in education, so you just have to understand that's kind of the perspective I'm working from sometimes, right? But you walk through the building trades shop, which is where they make all the sawdust and everything. And then right after that, you go into the welding shop where there's blow torches, right? So you collect a little bit of sawdust, and then go to where there's blow torches, which not a real good recipe, but anyway. One of the other things I want to point out here, and I won't have to dwell on this in a subsequent slide. It's hard to see in this image, but I'll point it out. So conservation is down in this wing. These little outcroppings or subsets of the shop spaces are actually classroom spaces, right? So classroom space, classroom space, classroom space, classroom space, which is fine, except our shops are bursting with enrollment, and so there just simply isn't enough room. And so what we want to do in this project is open these spaces up, kind of reclaim those classroom spaces so that it can be additional shop space, and then find some new classroom space for students so that we can expand some programming. Really, really important. Conservation and welding in particular, right? So if we want to bring new technologies into our welding labs, we physically, I don't think could do it because there's no place to put the stuff. So I've toured BOCES campuses from Erie 1 out in Buffalo to Eastern Suffolk, not a joke. And what I saw to a CT program in welding were some yeah, I'm losing the word. It'll come back to me. But some welding stations that were simulators, right? Yeah, thank you. Right, some simulator welding stations. So students can practice on all kinds of new technologies on those simulators. We literally would not have anywhere to put them right now. And so if we can expand some space, now we can think about bringing those things in and have the room to do that kind of work and give the students those kinds of experiences. That's not to say what's already in those shops isn't necessary. Right? The teachers need the things they have in there. We just need more room, as an example. Any questions about that? Safe and secure entrances, I think kind of a no-brainer, right? We have like double door entrances, but there's no lines of sight. There's no way to like kind of check people in and out if they're visitors to our campuses. So just a really simple kind of a no-brainer upgrade. Talked about renovating classroom spaces and shops already, but again, promoting the safety and the security of our spaces. From a flexibility standpoint, again, we're looking at remodeling educational spaces and creating shared resource hubs. Here's an example of what I mean by that. Currently in our special education classrooms, they all look kind of the same, right? So there's an instructional space, and then most of them have like a kitchenette area. Some of them have some laundry areas because students need to learn those skills. And what happens as you add this stuff, as you likely would guess, is the classroom, the instructional space shrinks in a big hurry. And so what we want to do, again, is open up that square footage so that we're maximizing the use of those spaces, creating flexibility in our ability to use those spaces, but then make sure that we create almost like a family and consumer science classroom that has all the kitchen equipment that students need to learn on so that they can learn those skills, all the laundry equipment that they need to learn on so that they can learn those skills. And so teachers can move their children into those spaces to learn those things, but then have a really open instructional space that they can go back to for their classroom, right? So we just think, again, from an ability to be nimble and how we use our spaces, this will really help us. Already talked about adjusting those CTE shop spaces, but we're also looking at how are we using all of the existing space that we currently have. For example, there are some mechanics bays that are not very often used at both of our campuses. So we're looking to actually claim some of that space so that we can expand the adjacent shops into those spaces, and then expand programming as well, right? So adjusting those spaces so that we can be more flexible and use the square footage that we have more effectively. We do not have any large group meeting spaces on either campus except for the cafeteria or the gymnasium, neither of which are really great professional workspaces. And so we believe that if we want our instructional staff to be professional and be treated like professionals, they need to have professional workspace where they can come together, roll up their sleeves, and do the work of teachers, right? Similarly, when we bring folks in from the outside for a variety of events, we really don't have good space to do that. So we know that we can repurpose some of the space that we have to create those multi-purpose large group meeting spaces that aren't a cafeteria and that aren't a gymnasium. I think you'd agree that neither of those are really great spaces for those purposes. Can we make them work? Sure, but it's really, really difficult. Talked about expanding those CT spaces, adding some new technologies for student learning, really looking at repurposing non-instructional space for instructional use. Both campuses have lots of like nooks and crannies of spaces that probably at one time were a really good idea. They're not utilized at all. They certainly can't be utilized for student space. So we want to reclaim that space, turn it into instructional space, maximize the effect of the square footage that we have available to us. And again, already talked about some of these specialized learning hubs, but it really speaks to those expanded learning opportunities for the students on our campuses. Similarly, in a slightly different way, looking at trying to purchase the Masonville building. Now, there's a little bit of process here. You may have seen there was an RFP that was put out by the Sydney Central School District because they're legally required to do that. There had to be some board action and some process. We will respond to the RFP. We hope that we will be what will kind of like win the opportunity to purchase that property. Why is this important? Well, first of all, the location to the Harrell campus is super key. You guys know the number of buses that come by this building on a daily basis from our components is a very large number of buses. right? So location couldn't be better. We have food service that can be provided from the Herald campus to this campus, so we don't have to duplicate like kitchen equipment and the like, right? We can have the prep at the Herald campus and have a warming kitchen at this campus. So just really a good opportunity here. And what this also will allow us to do is expand some specialized programming for some of our most at-risk learners into this campus, which is going to open up significant space at both the Herald campus and the Polk campus, so that we can look to bring in some more special education programming and begin to fill the needs that our districts have. I can say around the superintendent table, we're also talking about trying to build some more specialized programming that doesn't currently exist in the region. It's really hard to talk about that now because we don't have any place to put those classrooms, right? So we conceptually, we can get on the same page and say, yeah, we need these things. And then the question is, where are we going to put them? We don't have a good answer because our campuses are full. But this will allow us some significant flexibility and some new programming that, again, I know that districts have been begging for a long, long time in this BOCES region. So we're excited about the prospect of hopefully winning the bid here. There is a little bit of process. I will share with you, and you might know this. So the Sydney board will have broad discretion in who they award the bid to through that RFP process. It doesn't have to be like the highest bid or the best bid. They get to choose if they're going to like offload this building. They get to choose what it gets to be used for. So we think we have a really good shot because of the educational purposes, benefiting the entire region, right? So we think we have a really good shot at securing this building. Any questions about that?
Will the RFP be awarded before the referendum vote?
So it will be. Yeah, the dates in their timeline. It will be awarded. And I know from working with Even Bullock, the superintendent there, that if we are the ones that win the bid, they know that there has to be some process, right? So by the way, they can choose to not award it. Just because they put an RFP out doesn't mean that they have to get rid of the building, right? They can choose to not award it. So a little bit of process there, but again, we want to position ourselves to be able to do this. Now, there's a couple of other things that I really love about the idea of this building, in addition to what it will do for us educationally. Just the community redevelopment here, I think is really significant and not something that we should overlook, right? BOCES has an opportunity to really reinvest in areas of our community that would otherwise be underutilized or not utilized at all, and begin to repurpose some of these structures. We could never build this kind of square footage for the price that we're probably gonna invest in that building. Not even close. And you guys know, new construction for municipal buildings is a premium. And the district has kept this building up. I could move in there tomorrow if I had to. Now, does it need a refresh? Sure. But if I had to move in there, I could. They put 2 new boilers in not too long ago. It cost about $500,000 for a building that's been vacant, 20 years? Ish, right? It hasn't been used as an elementary school in about 20 years, is from what I understand. And the roof is relatively new as well. So our architects have been in there, put eyes on it, because they needed to do some estimation. Drop-off loop is like really in a great spot. So a lot of positives here. Any other questions about this? Okay. Along the lines of responsible stewardship, right? And just some images of things they're old, right? And they start to break down a little bit. And so we know that we need to take care of those building envelope spaces and also the hardscape. Lots of pavement on our campuses that our team has done a good job of keeping it patched together and putting it back together. But we really need a significant overhaul of sidewalks and driveways and the like. So definitely going to get after those things.
Have you approached like a Cascade Watershed Corporation for stormwater management on that campus?
We have not.
I would strongly suggest it because there's a lot of programs out there for funding and opportunities for local cost shares in the watershed to deal with timing of stormwater quality and things like that. If you're touching any of those envelopes, that may be very good for you. They were great partners out here doing all of our parking lots, taking care of our stormwater needs to the tune of several $100,000 worth of match. So
wow.
You should probably reach out to
I appreciate that.
Cascade Watershed Corporation.
Thank you. That is very helpful. We might be contacting you guys
Yeah, fine.
for who those points of contact would be, right, just to get us to the right people. So, again, along the lines of responsible stewardship, and a little shift in the conversation is talking about the financial pieces, right? And so it's really about where are we right now, and then how do we kind of leverage our position now for the future. What you will learn here in the next couple of minutes is there is little to no impact, and in fact, there's a diminishment of impact on debt service to our local districts, and that's for all 16 districts. Because of that smoothing of debt service, there's very little to no impact on tax cap. So we were careful of that and worked with Ben to say, okay, so we're gonna do this at the BOCES. What is that gonna mean for our school districts? Because you can't have like several percentage fluctuations in tax cap calculations for the districts, right? So we were careful about that. And we'll talk about the impact on local taxes. And there is a slight impact on the local taxes. And I'll show you very clearly why that happens, which kind of like defies logic a little bit when I say there's a reduction in debt service impact to the district, but there's still a slight impact on local taxes. But it is, and I don't want to overplay or underplay this, it is minimal. And I think you'll agree with me. So we will ensure consistency in the BOCES capital expense for the districts through this project, because we're only bringing on new debt as old debt is expiring. You can see the regional average on the taxpayers is less than 0.2%. And it's the average across all 16 components is $2.18 for property value, full value at $100,000, right? $100,000. Often when you see tax information come out like in May, it's like dollars per thousand. We're not talking about that here. We're talking about per $100,000, right? So it's fairly minimal. And I believe that it's less than the 218 on the average in the Walton district, if I remember correctly. Again, just comparative analysis of our current debt service. We're at about $3.59 million a year in debt service payments. The last payment is in the middle of August in 2027. And the district share is our WADA. You hear about that once a year, right? When you vote on the BOCES administrative and capital budget as a board, talk about our WADA, because that's the proportional share. It's the same for this. And so the proposal is $3.56 million. That will allow us to do a $44.4 million borrow. And then that first payment will come on in the next fiscal year. So there's that smoothing of the debt service payments, and the proportionality is still in terms of our WADA. This is just to show in August of 2027, you'll see that last payment of principal and interest of about 3.5, that's about $3.58 million. I won't belabor this. There's lots of information here if you're wondering, like, what's our WADA, right? That's what it stands for. It's a weighted average daily attendance. It's formulaic. It comes from state ed. It's not something that we make up, okay? If you compare your district's WADA to your current enrollment, it is highly unlikely that it will be the same, but it will be close. So if you're gonna do that and you're wondering, like, wait a minute, what's going on here, right? It's an estimation because it's formulaic of where students are and the like. And it changes over time because of those things, but this gives you a recipe for how you can go find those numbers and investigate if that's something that you're interested in doing, okay? But what we know is it's a air quotes, fair way to distribute proportionally those costs across the component districts in our region. So let's just jump to the meaty stuff here. This column shows that there is a projected diminishment in the capital cost to each of the components with this project. Little less principal and interest each year, right? Not a lot, but enough to make sure that it's, in essence, cost neutral to the districts. But I want to caveat that with a couple of things. So if you've done some work with fiscal advisors in the past, you know that they're very, very conservative in their estimates. So we have $44.4 million that we're gonna go to the voters for authorization of, right? That number we know is gonna be on the ballot. We have an estimation of 5% interest. That is likely to be high. So I know that fiscal just worked with another BOCES and they were sub 4. I want to say closer to 3.5 for the interest rate that they got. If that happens, these numbers only get better. Okay. The other piece is that's built in here, but it's not on the slide. Is we're at 90.4% state aid for the scope items in the project. It's possible that that can go higher because of some alternates that get put in and drive up the aidability of the items in the project. So again, if that happens, this only gets better. So we don't expect the aidability to be less than that 90.4%, because our team has been doing this for a long time and they know the types of things that are aidable and what's not. They know how to map that against maximum cost allowances and the like. So they have a really good idea that these numbers are pretty good numbers. Now, is it gonna be to the dollar? Probably not, right? But what we know is that we're not coming to our components and saying, we got a great project, but you're gonna have to increase your capital expense in order to help us pay for it, right? That's not what we're doing at all. So really solid, really solid numbers here and a solid project, but based on those assumptions. Now, here's the impact to districts across the region in terms of tax impact. And again, this is per $100,000. And what you can see in Walton, it's projected to be, oh, they don't want to do that, $1.69 of tax impact per 100,000, right? And that's on the average across the district. And you can see, and I'm so glad you're here, Rob. Right? The only district in the region that it's going down is Downsville. And this is maybe one of the few times that it's beneficial to have no state aid, right? What do you, like 10% the minimum? Yeah. Like that's the floor. So they actually will see a diminishment of a whole nickel is projected, right? But you can see what happens across the region otherwise. So why? Why is there a diminishment in the cost for the district, but a slight increase in tax impact? This slide shows the reason why. Pretty straightforward. So the capital cost to Walton for BOCES on an annual basis is about $265,000. You get back about $170,000 of that in state aid. That delta, about $94,000, gets distributed across your tax base, right? And it's a piece of the tax impact to your residents, right, for school. So that $94,000 gets distributed across your constituency. You can see a slight diminishment, about a couple $1,000s for Walton in terms of your capital cost to BOCES. But because, and this was 98% aidable, remember, this is 90.4% aidable. So that aid number is a little bit less. The delta between these two things gets put back in the local share and additionally distributed across your constituency. That's why there's a slight increase. It just has to do with the aidability. And so we really wrestled with these numbers to try to balance and get them as close to neutral as we possibly could. And I can tell you, went the wrong way, still going the wrong way. I challenged my team and Ben Maslow from Fiscal, and I said, I gotta have the answer to this question because I know somebody's gonna ask or they'll be wondering. What would we have to do to get these all to 0 or less than 0, right? And so we already know on this slide, we're less than 0. How do we do that here? And what we found is we would have to diminish the scope so significantly that we really couldn't do the project. And so I honestly could not responsibly come to the components and say, we got a great project that we're looking for support on, but we're really not getting done the things that we need to get done, because this is like one bite at the apple every 20 years, right? And so we felt as though these numbers were reasonable numbers, especially since we're talking about per $100,000 and the decrease in the capital cost to each of our components. We felt like this was kind of like the sweet spot for where we could come to our public. Okay. Ben would say usually a district picks like one of these things and kind of focuses on it. We've done a pretty good job of leveling the field with total amount of money, aidability, and tax impact. They're about as aligned as we can make them. Any questions about that? Any feedback, or need me to run through that again? All right, so you can see Walton, about $1.69 as an increase. I think you'd see that fluctuation even in your equalization rates on an annual basis, right? So we're talking about less than pennies on the dollar, right? Less than pennies on $1,000. Okay, regional average $2.18. I will leave all of you with a document that will take you step by step through the financials to see exactly where this comes from. but I won't take any more time tonight to run through that with you. And so there's a descriptor page for each of the lines, like what is it? And then there's a second page that shows exactly what the numbers are specific to Walton. So lower cost of component districts on the capital expense. We won't have any dip in rebounding in budgeting, and at minimal impact on taxpayers, we think positioned us to be able to say confidently that we're being responsible stewards of our resources. So I'll run through the voting information fast, but if you need more details, please stop me. There will be 2 ballot questions, one for all the work on our campuses, right? That's question number 1. Question number 2 would be the Masonville campus purchase. Now, how does a vote in a BOCES pass? It's a simple majority of all of the people that come out to vote. It does not have to pass in each component district, right? So if 1,000 people come out to vote over the entire DCMO region, we need 501 yeses at a minimum for the project to pass. So it's really important to get people out because we need the support. If question 1 fails, they both fail. In other words, and right, it would be silly that we purchase and fix up the Masonville building, but we don't do the work on our campuses where like most of the stuff happens. That would be ridiculous. So question 1 has to pass in order for the Masonville to even be an option. But question 1 could pass and question 2 could fail. We hope it doesn't, but it's possible. So we'll see what the voters have to say. The vote is going to be on February 3rd of 2026 from noon to 8. We will have an inclement weather date in the legals so that if we have some crazy weather, which is highly likely at time of the year, we can push it out the next week and hope for better weather. Any resident of one of our components 18 or older is eligible to vote as long as they live in the region for 30 days or more. And each of our instructional campuses in each component district will be a voting location. We're gonna have everything ready to roll for the components, like ballots, a ballot box. Our building trades is making a brand new ballot box and putting a Walton label on it for you guys. It's gonna be nice. One of the districts I was at, they said they still have their ballot box from the 2005 vote that I think they use on an annual basis, which I thought was kind of nice.
Can I ask a question? Are
Please.
we required to get the inspectors or?
So yes, so had some conversation with supers a couple few months ago, and folks committed to providing those people. But there will be some process because our board actually has to authorize them to be a part of this. And we're going to have a meeting, at a minimum a Zoom, if not an in-person meeting for all of you and your colleagues, so that we can all be on the same page, get those questions answered, and make sure people are feeling prepared and ready to roll. And our intention is to do that before the end of the calendar year. Okay. So we'll give you guys plenty of time to feel like you're not scrambling. And I know that those votes are a big deal for all of you. Okay, this is just a listing of all the sites, right? So we had to collect them so that we could have this ready for the legals. And you can see Bainbridge actually uses 2 sites, so there's even more than 18. So there we are. Now, timeline-wise, if you've done any capital work, and I know you have around this table, right, you know that there's seeker work that has to happen. We'll have a public hearing. Our board will authorize the project at their December meeting officially so that it can go to the public, right? So we get to that referendum vote day. We hope for a positive vote. Board accepts whatever the result is at a board meeting shortly thereafter. And then if we have a positive vote, we get ready to design. Right, so February 3rd, positive vote. February 4th, they've actually already started doing some design work, but right, that's when they really kick it off. They need about 8 months for this project to do the design work. They'll get it up to SED in the fall of 2026 for review. Once SED gives it their endorsement, then we'll get the bids out for securing contractors and award bids, right? Contractors mobilize, get the materials and supplies, and we're hoping to have dirt and dust flying in the springtime of 2027. Our construction management team is already putting plans together. We've had a meeting and we've got another one, not the end of this week, I think next week, to continue to build a plan so that we're ready to hit the ground running and capitalize on 2 summers worth of work, which will be huge for us, right? But you know, every day is precious. We're gonna do first shift work as well. To try to do a second shift would be cost prohibitive. So again, have to reduce the scope so significantly, and probably wouldn't even be able to get contractors to do that. We do have a website with all of the information that is relevant to this project on our webpage, and all the supers did commit to having a little link on their websites as well, so that if your constituency wants to go to the Walton webpage and find out some info, they should be able to just have a hot button that will take them here without having to search and try to figure things out. So trying to make it as easy as we can for people to get the information out. A little more challenging in a BOCES, it feels, than in a school district where people are a little bit closer to you. Questions, feedback, comments, thoughts?
If everything worked out, when would the projected opening of the Masonville campus be?
So we don't have a firm date yet, but that will be critical swing space for us. We have a little bit that we can make work in our other campuses, but if we can get in there and get rolling, make that space usable, sooner the better, so that we can use it as swing space to get into some of those other areas of the buildings. So not a definite answer to your question, but just know that it is at the top of our priority list to get in there. There are tenants in there right now. So Sydney leases it to Broome Developmental. There's an 18-month, like a maximum 18-month notification period, but we may be able to work with them on that to get in there a little bit sooner and get rolling. Good question, thank you.
The work anticipated to be primarily during summertime. I was just wondering how disruptive construction will be to like the CTE courses and the students that go there from our district.
Yeah, so those kinds of spaces we know will have to be summer work. But there are some other areas of the building that we know we can move, and they can put up temporary walls. So we can move the programming into other spaces, put up some temporary walls, get in there and do what they need to do, right? They can like separate corridors so that there's still pass-throughs that need to be there. And so that's why we're starting right now with the planning, so that we can begin to figure out how to phase the project and not disrupt programming. So we're not looking at like, sorry, conservation, you're gonna all have to go to the full campus, right? Like that's a non-starter. First of all, there's too many kids and it's just impractical. So absolutely sensitive to that. Right? That's a great question, I appreciate it. But I'm not gonna say there won't be any disruption.
No.
Because you guys know, right, in any capital work, there's going to be, right? There's gonna be smells and noises and things of that nature, but we absolutely are not looking to impact programming. Somebody asked, when was that last night? In another district. And they asked, so I was in Oxford. And so they said, well, Stanford summer school, right? Well, we'll worry about that when the time comes, right? But we might be able to flex between our two campuses. We might, I know back in the 2005 project, the summer school was hosted at some of the components, right? So we might just have to look at those things. We'll absolutely make sure we have continuity of programming. Just might not be the same as it was the last time. So, make sense? Anything else? Seem like a solid project? Appreciate it.
Yep.
Okay.
Thanks, Mike.
Thank you.
I'm gonna hand out those other pieces of paper to you, just so that you have them, but I'll try not to be disruptive. Thank you guys for the help with the technology.
If everybody's okay with that, just propose a 2-minute break. Is that okay? Just so I can run to the bathroom quick. Is that okay?
Sure, Kevin.
Candy in the cup. You guys are welcome to the candy.
No, I was gonna just beg it off the shelf, it's fine.
You can eat the candy. I brought a snack.
All right.
I did a healthy snack, but I didn't eat dinner.
Oh, thank you.
Here.
Go get my bucket.
Take one down, pass them
Thank you.
around.
Appreciate it.
Bucket of my own.
Yeah, thanks for that. Thanks for the presentation.
Yes, good
That
job.
was great. Thank you. And that, I'm telling you, I was seeing it,
Yeah, we're gonna look into that for
That's
sure.
a must.
Especially like, I mean,
the stormwater components are big, and they, with our projects, it was considered local in-kind share. So, it was actually went against our able, which was nice, our local share.
absolutely.
Yeah,
So that'll probably
that's
break some
huge.
things down and.
Yeah, so I mean, it ate into our
Tell me
14%. The Catskill Watershed Corporation. And they're mostly gonna be stormwater and runoff. So, root systems, parking lots, stormwater detention, any of those things you touch, so. And they're usually a costly item, so. Yeah. You would probably wanna, I mean, the executive director is Jason Merwin, and he can.
Merwin.
Merwin, yep. Jason Merwin, he'll point you to the right people.
Awesome.
They have a web page
Maybe
and
want this?
everything that you can pull up and read about the programs.
Great. Thank you. Very helpful. We'll see what we can do.
Thank you so
All right.
much.
Take care,
Thank
everybody.
you. Have a good night.
Anybody?
Okay, moving on to item 5A, our discussion items. So first we have the report out on the NISBA annual conference, which both Teresa and I attended through the digital experience. I would just like say generally, I think this is a great opportunity for folks who attend who are time limited and still get access to not all the information, but a lot of the key presentations, some of the keynote presentations, which are really outstanding from my perspective. I think they were really, really well done. There are links here to the digital experience page, and I think, Corey, you're working on trying to get access to the presentations for
Right,
potentially.
well, the recordings, I did give you a link to the recordings. You do have to enter your name and email address though, in order to access them as a member. I am working on compiling all of the handouts, and that will be added to Board Docs as well as Drive.
Awesome, thank you. So if you do get the chance, I encourage you to watch those presentations. I think there's like 18 or 19 that are available through the recordings. A few of the ones that I thought were really good, there was two that Jamie McPherson from NISBA did, on district goal setting. There was one on superintendent evaluation that was also really well done, and then the final, the keynote on kindness, yeah.
Kindness
Which-
101.
Teresa, you can probably talk about more, but I thought it was really outstanding. And
It was. I will say there is no break time when you do it virtually. You start in the morning and they rotate through. There's not a lunch or breakfast break or bathroom break and if you're like I am, type A, I didn't want to get up away from my computer. So you have to be able to respect your own boundaries. But with the recordings, you can stop and start. So I think this is such a good opportunity for us to be able to have those by going. But yeah, incredible opportunities, strong keynote speakers, but the one that stood out to me the most was Steve Hartman. He's on the road, CBS, and Charles Corral did it before. Not that I remember growing up and seeing a lot of those episodes, but I was like, oh, this will be interesting. He ran Kindness 101 with his own children during COVID. He did a podcast, and it's now just taken off. I have goosebumps remembering it because that keynote speaker, it's a good thing I was home because I went through a whole box of tissues. I cried. And I try not to cry about a lot of things. It was incredible. So I would absolutely suggest that if you've seen nothing else, that you watch that keynote. There's incredible information in the other ones, but that is extremely powerful. And they ended on it. So I thought all those people that tried to cut out at the end, it was definitely not, you wouldn't have wanted to do that. So
that's very good.
yeah, it was incredible. And I think just doing the virtual ones, we have the opportunities now to get all the recordings. So at least one of us signing up always is a benefit to the district and the group.
Any questions? Good. A note on the Facebook comments. So we did have a post that went out that had the board statement on the turning off the Facebook commenting. And if anybody's looking for more information on that, you can go back to the October 7th Board of Education meeting. The recording for that is here discussion. We had a shared services committee meeting on October 22nd. Teresa, do you want to?
I don't mind reporting out on that. The first thing is I want to point out that we did have Adam Hoover that did intend to give us his resignation. So the first thing I want to say before I move forward is I really do appreciate everything that he's done for our district so far as AD. It's a lot of nights, it's a lot of time away from family, but making sure that we acknowledge the time and effort that he put in for that. So with that resignation pending, which we will have tonight, we needed to make sure that we had an AD in place. So we held a shared service committee meeting, and in that we met with our shared service committee members. We had Graydon, And Jacob, and you filled in, I think, right? You were there as well, but I think you were in for Bruce. I think that's who's normally on it.
Yep.
And then both superintendents, so Rob and I both sat down, and then we really went through, as a possibility, what would it look like to have one AD and merge to one person. And we took information that I was not privy to when I was first here, but it was feedback was looking for having one person in charge, because when the merger study was discussed and some of the feedback was it's difficult to often have more than one person trying to give information. I think too many chefs in the kitchen kind of situation. So the idea was to come to one person with the support of both of the secretaries. And with that, we came forth and I have proposed for this evening a recommendation to have Rob Reinhardt be able to be the AD. That there is a merger agreement that we did as a municipality agreement that we would do between the two districts for the remainder of this year, and that would be my recommendation.
And that's later on the agenda.
Yep, later on the agenda. But that was really the preface of that committee meeting.
Thank you.
And you're welcome.
And the policy committee met October 27th. And Allie and Teresa jump in, or Kai as well, because Kai is also attending as well. The link to the meeting minutes are on board docs, or is right there and take you to the meeting minutes. So we started off talking about making a change to the committee charter, just a change to add the ex officio student board member to the list of invitees. And that first reading for that revision is on tonight's agenda. And then Art and Kai went through the survey data that we've received from the students as well as staff related to the cell phone policy. And we're not going to get into the details tonight because I think there's going to be a full presentation in December, right, from both Mr. Loomis and from Kai on that. But
I think
we did get into some of the discussion that led to some of the simpler revisions that we discussed that could be made to the policy, basically just bring it in alignment with how we're actually monitoring and implementing the policy right now. There were some more in-depth discussion about the requests that we're getting from students, particularly with regard to being able to listen to music and to a lesser extent, fitness trackers as well. So those are two items that our administration kind of has to take a more detailed look at, and then those could potentially come back for a revision later in the year. But for now, we're going to push forward with a first reading potentially in December, right?
Yep,
with just
December 9th, we're shooting for.
the revisions to the policy to bring it in line with how we're actually implementing it.
For storage and so forth.
Yep.
Did you want to add?
Anything to add?
Anybody?
We talked about the investment policy, so we're basically going to be using our regulation, the existing regulation, and converting that to our policy. And Meg's going to be working on that with Ms. Glavin, so that'll be coming forward as a first reading potentially in December. We have the expense reimbursement policy, which we're going to be making changes to. Basically, it's fairly restrictive right now. It actually has set rates in there that are pretty dated, and they don't reflect current costs for hotels and travel. So we're going to update that, and that'll be coming forward first reading in December. We talked about the motor vehicle traffic on school grounds, and that was sort of related to the signage that's going up still, right?
There is, yes. We're still in the process. I'm going to throw two examples out in Friday letter for you guys to take a look at.
Okay.
It's been a little bit of an issue trying to find one sign that encompasses an image for all the things that we're trying to do. So.
But you guys brought a policy to the table. We talked about it. We realized we don't even have a policy related to just student parking or parking in general, so we thought that might be something.
Some other questions.
Yeah, might be something to look at in the future about actually having a policy related to parking. And then NISBA actually had a policy service update that they were not required changes, but ones that we will make eventually. But if we were to do them now, would require us to reprint all of our paperwork and redistribute it to all the districts. So we thought it made sense just to save those changes till the completion of this school year, and then they'll be changed over the next summer, I'm guessing. And then they'll be printed for the 26-27 school year.
Right, if you choose to do that as a board.
Yep. Anything else in policy? Ellie? Yeah, good. And the audit committee met tonight. So Tammy, you want to give a quick update on that?
Yes, so the audit committee met tonight at 5 o'clock, just before our meeting. And so that was Bruce, Kevin, Teresa, and myself, along with Sandy Gregory. So what we did is reviewed a random selection of the internal audit claims reports and with Meg. So any questions that we had, we gave to Meg to do a little more research on. And I just wanted to take the opportunity to thank Sandy Gregory for her time, and she's also very thorough, and we really do appreciate her coming in and volunteering to help us out in the audit process.
Yes, really appreciate that. Thanks,
Yeah.
Tammy. We had to reschedule the October 28th Facilities Committee meeting, and they will meet tomorrow, November 5th at 5 p.m. The next regularly scheduled meeting is Monday, November 24th. Finance Committee will meet at 5 p.m. on Thursday, November 13th.
Right.
As long as Michelle can make that, right? Is that it?
5th and 6th?
On the 13th.
The 13th.
Instead
I
of
think, yeah, I
this
think I
Thursday.
responded to that.
I don't recall getting it. So that's okay?
I don't.
Maybe if you could follow up with Corey, that would be appreciated. And the Curriculum Committee will meet on Tuesday, December 2nd, 5 p.m. Reminder that we have the Scholastic Achievement Ceremony on Wednesday, November 12th at 6 p.m. We're looking forward to celebrating our students' achievements with their families. And lastly, Kai, did you have any update for tonight? Any updates? Okay. Any other discussion items? All right, we'll move on to 6A correspondence.
So we received an invitation to the DCMO BOCES National Technical Honor Society induction ceremony, which takes place on our next board meeting date. So unfortunately that conflicts. However, Mr. Loomis will be attending. And we also received a save the date for the annual legislative breakfast on February 7th. And I also want to let you know that last year we had applied for a New York State Archives grant, and unfortunately we did not get that award. However, in hindsight, it was probably not a good year to tackle a project, so I'm not too upset. I do want to say that out of 223 applications they received, only 80 were awarded. So I found that surprising that it was such a small number. And the reasons we did not get it was mostly because we did not show proper quantitative data that they were looking for regarding staff time, the number of retrievals that we have. And that project was to digitize paper as well as microfilm records. So Brett Wood and I are moving forward. We're looking into at least getting his architectural drawings done, because that is really something that has to happen pretty soon.
Is there an opportunity for more grant?
Sure, every year they have it,
Okay.
and we could submit for a scaled down version. I just think what we attempted to put into one project was probably too much, so.
Thanks, Corey.
Mhm.
All right, 7A, any additions to the agenda?
We do not have any.
Moving on to our consent agenda. Declare surplus, personnel resignation, retirement, personnel unpaid leave of absence, personnel appointments, and personnel athletic recommendations, including an emergency appointment.
I'll make a motion.
Second.
Motion by Jake, second by Tammy. Any further discussion? All those in favor indicate aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. 9A, the new business. This is proposed intermunicipal agreement between Downsville Central School District and Walton Central School District for a shared athletic director effective November 5th through the end of this school year, June 30th, 2026.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Motion by Graydon, second by Jake. Any further discussion? All those in favor indicate aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. And then we have 9B, which is personnel appointment, and this would be an appointment of Rob Reinhardt to be appointed as the shared athletic director effective date
That's November 5th.
November 5th through June 30th.
Make the motion.
Second.
Motion by Jake, second by Tammy. Any further discussion? All those in favor indicate aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. 10A, the policy review. Gail, you want to run through those policies, please?
Curriculum management, e-curriculum management exhibit, textbook selection and adoption, counseling and guidance programs, emergency appointment, and evaluation of staff not covered by 3012C or 3012D of education law.
Thank you. So please review those policies at your convenience, and we can discuss them at future meetings. They're part of our annual policy review. One thing I forgot to mention, Corey, maybe you can chime in, or Teresa, that we talked about just quickly in policy that the administrative staff are receiving these policies as
Correct.
well in advance of the meeting, so they are reviewing them as well. And if there's anything that they see that is not consistent with how things are being done in the district, they're going to push it up to
our attention,
Yep.
and it'll come to the committee.
That was a new process that we added in at the end of last school year. 10B is the approval of the revised committee charter. As I mentioned, this was adding language to invite the student ex officio board member.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Graydon, second by Jake. Any further comments or questions? All those in favor indicate aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. 11A, supervisor remarks.
Okay.
Devin, would you like to cover those two?
So we had John and Brett's that I'm going to just do some highlighting on. With John Nolan, I wanted to point out that in his report that you guys have attached, that they had a bus driver recognition. That was October 22nd, 22nd. The high school chorus went down to sing for all of our bus drivers down there. So that was a big deal to recognize them. So that is one important piece. The other thing is, just as important to know, as of November 6th, this week, we are starting to do the second round of bus drills. So people should be aware, it's a little time consuming, but it's a necessity. For Mr. Woods, note also in one of his the highlights I wanted to pull out is the gym floors will all be refinished during November, and that's in both buildings. So just to be aware that that's going to be happening. And number 2, we did our lead testing. We did take the lead testing samples. We're not sure the time frame that's going to come back, but when we get those results, we'll be putting it on the district website, Facebook page, and we'll also make sure we're trying to even mail them out in report cards if we get it back in time. So absolutely make sure everybody gets that communicated out. So.
Just a question about the gym floors. Is that going to impact basketball season at all, or any idea?
I said, is this going to be all of them? And he said, yes, it is. And remember,
Okay.
now I know we have a break, so I'm not sure, but I would think that he's keeping all that in consideration.
Wasn't there an issue with the gym floors 2 years ago?
Oh, I can
Yeah.
check on that though.
Just
I have no problem.
being
No, I
too
think
slip-
refinishing them right ahead of the season is a great idea. Yeah. Getting them sticky again would be nice.
Okay.
Good timing. And I'm sure he'll do without impact. Always has.
Have to run more stair labs, that's all.
Sure.
And superintendent remarks.
Okay, so I have a lot of things. Breaks with it. All right. So I want to just follow up on some of our celebrations. I just wanted to say thank you again to Ms. Gilbertson and Mr. Preston for their efforts to ensure that all of our kids got a chance to apply and actually be accepted at Broome Express. And just to point out, that is their lifetime. once they're accepted, if they choose not to go to college at this point, they have the opportunity to go back later on. And a lot of them may see the value in that if they enter some kind of workforce that allows for them to get another course under their belt that increases salary or change a career. So important piece of things that we do here. Number two, as a district. Two, another thank you to the principals. I just want to make sure we do a nice shout out to them. Really, they do an awful lot of work trying to maintain and keep things. It's a thankless job sometimes. So I just want to make sure we recognize them again. I want to congratulate the music department instructors, both Mrs. Doing and Miss Lawrence, and their accompanist, Mrs. Ball. They did an incredible job. I know there were a few of us that were there, but really nice job. As in October, to be able to pull together the singing and the instrumental ensembles, it was beautiful. So that's quite a feat to get everybody on track by only 2 months in. So good job. You were there.
Thanks.
Yes. So really very impressed. In addition to that, congratulations to our volleyball team. I don't usually do a lot of things, but there was a big deal last night. We won. We go to Lansing. It's a 2-hour drive. It'll be Thursday. So big positive. Sports are always important, but I thought that was an important shout out. I was invited to be, this is important because I'm going to bring this back to you guys. I was invited to be a member of a Walton Village Exploratory Committee by Eric Knoll, who has talked to our mayor. I reached out to him to get more details, and I'll update you as we move forward because I think the committee is trying to form and be part of a committee that looks on how you can work through this, our community, revive the town. And so there wasn't a lot of dates. He didn't have dates set. There wasn't a lot of involvement as of yet, but so I will keep you abreast of that because I want to make sure that I have your blessing to be a participant on that committee if that comes to fruition. So just figured I would share that out. We also have been approached about grants, a New York food and agricultural grants. I've had a teacher reach out. I know you had brought that up. Ms. Hungerford and I we were on a grant meeting and it came up about New York State food and agriculture. And I just wanted to know, so we reached out to our BOCES affiliate, Constance Babino. We actually had a Zoom meeting with her about this. BOCES does actually, when they're made aware of any of the research grants, whether it's food or equipment, they take advantage of it. And we are presently in one right now. So that actually was gained by the BOCES. It's part of the New York Agricultural Grant that promotes all schools sharing. In addition to that, it provides a farm to school coordinator who supports us during our New York Thursdays, where we have all of the food, or most all of the food that we provide on that day, coming from New York State farms. So in addition to that, there was a spaghetti sauce project that was affiliated with Delhi College, and this was a tasting site that we found out. So they made a lot of spaghetti sauce, apparently, 11,000 pounds of tomatoes. So there are those grants that are out there, and we actually are benefiting from them because the BOCES collected that. The one that was received by Ithaca was a federal grant, and it's been cut. So in a win, we didn't have any access to any of those. But with this grant through the BOCES, just as a benefit here, we also, Constance, as far as equipment, we received a $500 immersion blender. So when there's a need, she's supporting. Our cafeteria is in a good standing with all the equipment and so forth. One of the things we did want to look at is our capital project, though, what could benefit. And we talked about some of the actual things that are in the cafeteria are more of a capital project, like an HVAC hood, that would not fall under like equipment that was from the cafeteria. But we're in such good standing that typically if we need something, the BOCES is providing it. And that is through them acquiring grants that support us. So just wanted to make sure that was brought up. Doesn't mean that we're not going to continue to keep looking for things and be in touch with Constance about that and the BOCES. Another component, we were actually approached to about a 5K race that's coming up. So just to be aware, they did fill out facilities usage. It was Carol Moore, and she submitted and we approved to have a route that passes through Stockton Ave, sidewalk up, and then back down our driveway as part of their 5K. So we thought that was a good way to engage community members that would be here, and they have their insurance, obviously. And in an effort to have a better communication engagement on the district website, we actually worked with our Apogee website. They are boy, I'm losing words tonight. They are in charge of our website, and they acquired, it's called Always On, which is a chat bot through Aptigee. So if you've been on our website at all, down in the right-hand corner, there is a small icon that looks like a Walton warrior head, and that is a chatbot that is set up for Walton Central School that can help you navigate with questions if you are searching for something on our website. Some of the feedback that I received when I first got here, it wasn't very user-friendly. We had a communication survey that we did that also pointed out. So this allows you to go in and be helpful. You also can give feedback. So if something is given to you and it was not what you were looking for, you can give us feedback that it was inaccurate, outdated, and not helpful. So we are taking a look at that. Mr. Harmer and I, our communications person through DCMO, sat down and ran through the analytics already to see where we are actually finding that we have some outdated information, and that those analytics can be given to us to review, to make corrections on our website, to add new things, and also to see where people are searching. So is this something we want to move right up into the front of our website if we're all looking for the calendar or the menu? Should that be more forefront? So I think that should be helpful with helping to make sure the information is more accessible to us and we're supporting the community using our website. With that being said, just the communication survey. I'm not going to go through too much of it because I think that it'd be worthwhile after our staff has had time during our stakeholder meetings with our strategic planning. But we did set out that communication and engagement survey to school families. We had 176 responses of varying perceptions. So in that, in summary, just quickly, we learned that those who responded preferred the method of communication was emails, texts, and those school messenger robocalls. When we send a robocall, if you've got notifications, they go to your email, they go to your text, and they go to your phone if you choose to have it, if you're set up for that. And we can determine when we want to send those out. So that is preferred, and the top two were email and text. So, and over a half of those people responded. They actually said that we were effective in our communication, either highly effective or effective, and 12.9% felt we were somewhat ineffective. So we're still going to take away that kind of information to see if we can gain. We can break down. So the instructional leadership team actually met today, and we reviewed some of it together very briefly. But I look forward to sharing it out at the next district-wide strategic planning committee meeting. We talked at ILT today to have one in December possibly, because all of our buildings are working on their strategic plan goals, but getting back together and really taking a look at what our district goals and how we're all working towards that. So that would be good information, because as you recall, one of our, which is a board priority too, is communication and engagement with our community. So we'll be taking a look at that. And then just quickly to end also in support of safety, we sent a memo out today. If some of you got it, staff got an email this afternoon before school ended, and then we sent out a robocall on this, just again to remind anybody at the middle school and high school about the student drop-off. So that has still become an issue of safety and making sure that we're concerned that kids are being dropped off at the side parking lot as they come up off of Stockton Ave down our driveway. We still had some close calls and some issues that we want to try to make sure we're addressing in our parking lot. So with that, we decided to send a reminder out to help support that. Doesn't mean we're trying to consider some other options, but right now that was what the plan was when this parking lot was built, as the student drop-off was over there. Any questions or concerns on all that I just threw at you?
I do on that last one.
Yes.
Is there any way we can start looking into authorized vehicles for front drop-off, so you have a student that's injured or any of those kind of things?
Yeah.
Can we do a parking pass so it's easily recognizable, and anybody that doesn't have that parking pass is not permitted to drop students off there? Because I get multiple feedback all the time from parents that you can't believe what it looks like out there in the mornings.
Mm-hmm.
And I hear it all the time, and I'm like, okay, we're addressing it. Well, I'm tired of saying we're addressing it. So we need to think about something different. Is there a pass that's our staff, if it's Mr. Beers or anybody can recognize, say, yes, that car does belong here at this point in time, or it does not, because apparently they're not listening all that well as to where the student drop-off is, and it wasn't designed to be safely out there.
I know, like at the fair, there's a colored sticker, like if you were in the camping section of the fair, you would get a colored sticker that you could put in your windshield on a certain spot, like on the left-hand side. I don't think they're probably that expensive, and they stick on and they peel off pretty easily. So maybe that's an option that we could look
'Cause there
into.
We just
are
gotta think about- We
exceptions,
just need to think
yes.
about something that often,
with
you know,
tickets.
because it's too arbitrary right now to say, you know, is this person belong here, do they not belong here? Because some of those situations change too, right?
Right.
An injured student that needs drop off because they have a broken leg, you know, you would have that temporary pass that you would know they're
And the
supposed
other
to be
parents
there.
will say, oh, that's why they're there. And they can say, oh, look, they're there, so I can be. Well, there's a reason why. And this,
And there are
different
exceptions. I did
situations.
confirm
Oh,
that with our
and
principals.
rightfully
They've
so.
given
There-
exceptions for
there
that.
are- yeah, there
And
should
there's
be.
temporary exceptions, kids
Yeah.
that are in a wheelchair that, or, you know, that have to get out. So we, I mean, I will tell you, this has been since I got here, so we've looked at a bunch of things.
Predates you by half a century.
Brad and John, we want to have, so we had a really good ILT conversation about it. We are now, you know, and we knew we were going to put a memo out, but we also said, maybe we need to take a look. So that's going to involve more than just us. It's Rick, our safety officer, like lots of people sitting down at the table and going, all right, we are going to do something different. Do we want to make it one way on this way? Do we want to allow parents to go down the bus lane, but not during that time the buses have to be? I mean, lots of things have been thrown out. But right now, there is a plan that was developed when the parking lot was put in, so I think we should abide by that. But I definitely can follow up, because I know there are exceptions.
In my opinion, the bus lane is the bus lane.
Agreed.
That's what it was designed for. That took a lot of conflict out directly
Okay.
with the buses, because I remember what it used to look like before. And I think we need to do a good job of reaching out to the other districts, for example, and making sure when visitors are coming to our campus for sports or whatever they're coming for, drama club, any of those kind of things, like that's a bus dedicated lane. You don't have to park out in the parking lot. That bus lane is all yours for any kind of visiting buses. And I just think we need to reach out and remind the other districts once in a while. I'll catch them in the parking lot at football games. I'm like, hey, by the way, that whole front lane is yours. Like, that is your dedicated parking. You don't need to go anywhere else. But I think that, you know, that was established for a safety reason. I think that needs to be reinforced as well. So I would never be in favor of parents coming down that lane.
Okay.
It just doesn't make any sense.
There's
No.
so
I
many
think you're
different
opening up
options have thrown
A whole
out.
nother problem, like it's bad enough out here.
And that pickup time, I think the other buses are doing very well. They're parking far enough back so the regular school buses can get in. I mean, I sit there and watch them every day, and they're just very considerate of all the other buses. It just seems to work, so why change it?
Right.
And another topic is Townsend School. I know the village police are directing buses right now, but that is getting so hazardous, it is unbelievable. I literally watched a parent a couple days ago pull up to the crossing guard. She was crossing students, open her driver's door, get out of her vehicle, run over, grab her kid, put him back into the car, and drive away. Nobody could get by because her driver's door was wide open in the middle of the road. This is just, and so I think we need to contact maybe the sheriff's department, ask them to come and just sit there for a couple times or something, because this is ridiculous and somebody is seriously gonna get hurt.
Well, I know we're doing a study, and that does involve some of that too, is to take a look at that, because I know the mayor was looking at, do we want to make that a one-way so people can't? But you did bring up a good point. I want to say thank you to all those crossing guards, because I feel like there's an awful lot of crossing guards out that are putting themselves at risk. I've watched sometimes
Yeah.
cars that are in front of me that maybe aren't, you know, and they're stepping right out there with their stop sign. So just always be cautious of our crossing guards and our children crossing down by Townsend as well. But that's something we could take a look at. Yeah, because it's not okay to park and stop in the middle of the road, so.
Yeah.
I can reach out.
But it's a hereditary or repetitive thing. There's never been any law enforcement that has ever enforced them parking on the wrong side of the street. It has never been enforced, and nobody, village, county, has ever taken the initiatives to start issuing tickets where people are parked in the drop-off zones. They are clearly marked with hash marks, no parking, no stopping, and they continue to do it, and nobody takes any action. I get that we don't want to step on parents' toes. However, when somebody's kid gets hit,
Oh,
it's
a
gonna be an
liability.
issue. And they cross them, not with the crossing guard. If they're up towards my house, they just walk them across the street there to go into the UPK entrance. It's not safe. It's just not safe.
Yeah, so I think just a overall look at both campuses again,
Agreed.
because something has to change.
And where the
It's been too
cones are,
long.
they literally park there, so that means they're in the middle of the road because the cones are 2
Cause I know the cones are out, so we're trying to
the
help.
curb, and it's like,
They just park on the outside of the cone and
yeah,
you got a car in the middle of the road.
yeah.
So they start lining up at like 12 o'clock.
Well,
3 o'clock.
it's
Oh,
not
I
that
know,
bad.
I've been down.
No.
Well, no, I was down there the other day, I was like,
People are
what?
lining up at 12:30, 1 o'clock.
Yeah.
You start seeing people start to park.
Some of the classes get out, I mean, I go down at 2 and I do a bunch of phone work while I'm sitting there, but, and watching people do amazing things, but
Can I just say, I was very impressed with the athletic appointments for our winter sports. It seems like we have a lot of new interests that are volunteers, throughout the community. I thought that was great to see on the agenda. Just some
Yeah.
vibrant faces there, I know that are passed along here that I think will do an excellent job in shaping our future, so I was just impressed by seeing the quality of the appointments.
I do have a question, and it's probably because I'm new, but how do they select who is appointed to coach a sport? Should it not be appointed from inside by contract? How is that decided?
From what I've gathered, and I am new as well, that if there's coaches that are presently doing it, it's kind of a right to refuse. And the thought process was if no one in the district has selected, who's an employee, has wanted to do it, it's gone outside. And they post. So,
Because apparently there was a letter of interest from somebody that works in the district a while back that was not contacted about being.
who actually
coach.
applied?
But they sent a letter of interest way back in
Okay.
the spring, and then they were never approached, and then somebody from outside the district was actually hired.
Outside the district, got it?
That is not an employee. So I just want to understand how the selection process is done so that there shouldn't be any conflict in the future.
I think that will help all of us. So,
You want me to speak to that a little bit?
you are more than welcome, because I know we've, yeah.
So, for this year, Dr. McDonald, I, Adam, and Bert, all met, and, the merge is it's an evolving,
Yeah, we got that.
system. And so, for this year, what we agreed that we would be, council would be hiring certain sports, and Walton would be hiring certain sports. We were primarily hiring the girls, coaches, and Walton would be hiring the boys coaches. Within that, each bargaining unit has their own, own criteria, own expectations for that. So, past practice, previous hires, those type of things all come into play. So without knowing the specifics of that person and their situation, it could have been a Downsville person, it could have been a Walton person, but that's what we're doing for this year is, that agreement was made that we were handling primarily girls, Walton's hiring primarily boys. That said, we're adding a couple of new positions this year. We just got an agreement with our teachers union and MOU that we're going to be appointing coaches that aren't necessarily identified in that contract, because with the merge, we have new things going on. And for example, bowling. We have 42 kids signed up for bowling, so we need 2 coaches. So we're appointing a varsity bowling coach, and then we're going to appoint a JV bowling coach, even though JV bowling doesn't exist anywhere in the MAC, but that's kind of the criteria it meets. So, without knowing the specifics, that's kind of the process that's being used for this year. I guess I might be speaking a little prematurely on this, but just in conversations with the Downsville Teachers Association, if we ever get to the point that we need to pull coaching out of both contracts and make it a separate entity, I think there's open-mindedness towards that.
But in the meantime, and you're gonna handle everything through this year, but if somebody does have an interest in something for next year, at least get you the letter of interest, and then if you continue, then you can communicate that information forward to whomever, or if it's you, it's still you.
Having one person in charge now is going to alleviate some of that problem, and then a lot of
I
it
agree.
was the two, and
And I think some communication may have got lost along the way in all the shuffle. I just wanted to kind of
No, it's a
understand a
good
little better.
question. And thank you.
Especially with-
So that, let me know, but I.
No,
kind of
that's
the-
fine,
okay.
and I just knew there was some bits tied to contractual things and appointments. I just needed to wrap my head around it. Thank you.
Yes, thanks.
Anything else, or,
If you guys have any other questions, let's.
okay. Not advancing. Okay, we do have the need for executive session tonight for the purpose of discussing a matter relating to particular students and a matter relating to future employment of particular persons. I would entertain a motion.
makes a motion.
Second.
Motion by Jake, second by Tammy. Those in favor indicate aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. And it's not expected that the board will take action after executive session, so at this time I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Make motion.
Second.
Or inviting Gary in.
You get that? Oh, yes, and we're inviting Gary Williams into executive session as well. All those in favor indicate aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. We are
Thank
moving
you,
into exec.
everybody, for
Thank you very much.
coming. Thank you, thank you.
Thanks, Rob.
Thanks, Christina.
Yes, thank you, thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, yeah.